Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by my buddy Myron.
Hey, folks. Glad you could drop by and see us today. Hope you enjoyed Wrestlemania and Wrestlemania week. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, man.
What you got, Nick?
Look, we'll flashback to last week. We did our Ultimate Wrestlemania card. We appreciate all the entries, everybody sending stuff in, sharing their
That show went
cards.
over well.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows, man. We talk about it, when we do it. It's been every couple of years we do it. We really enjoy doing it. And, it was kind of hey, it took place of last week's show just because of Mania, and we wanted to do something to shake it up a little bit. And, of course, as we always tell you, if if you were a Patreon member over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod, you'd have had that show that show, we released it on Sunday. So you'd have had it days upon days early. And you always get the show as early as we get it. As soon as we record it, it's like the first thing I do is I get it and I drop it there. So again, make sure you're signing up for us over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. We greatly appreciate it. But yeah, man, Mania was here.
Question about the greatest WrestleMania card show. Did anything happen this weekend that might have replaced one of your picks?
Honestly, probably not. I don't think anything would have replaced all of it. No, why?
I think Edge and AJ Styles did something special. And I know we'll get to that, but man.
Yeah, I just don't know about if it would have knocked off anything as tire as the top. You could make the argument. Could you now use, because you got to remember the beauty of our rules on that card, you could use the Brock Roman match if you chose to, if you loved it. Now we're going to get into whether we liked it or not. So that's a whole totally different conversation. Would one of the women's matches have taken your place on one of your, that's always a possibility because it was two really good. And again, we'll get into all that, share our thoughts. We just, thanks for everybody shooting in their stuff, their cards and stuff. It was awesome to see all of those. It's fun. It's just a fun show. That's kind of our big thing there. But speaking of fun, man, before we get into this week's episode, check out our friends over at Prize Picks. You'll see the referral code there on the screen the entire show. So if you want to sign up over there, it's a great thing, man. It's fun. Please play responsibly. That's my full disclaimer on it. But let's just jump right in and check out our friends over at Prize Picks.
You still working on this?
It's 2 minutes to kickoff. Who do I pick?
2 words. Prize Picks. It's so easy. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. It's just you against the numbers. Simply pick the over-under on 2 or more players, and that's it. You can win up to 10 times your money in just one day. Join over 150,000 people who found a better way to play. Download the Prize Picks app today and get your first deposit match up to $100.
That's right, man. Check out our friends over at Prize Picks. Use that referral code. They'll your initial deposit, they'll match it up to $100. Man, it's cool. I don't know if have you had a chance to play it yet? No, I'm still playing every week.
I have not got a chance to play it yet. I have been so busy with everything going on right now. I plan to sit down and get a look at it post WrestleMania week.
Yeah, man. NBA, League of Legends, all of the shooting games, the hockey, golf, everything's on there. The tournament was on there. I played some college basketball while the tournament was going on. You're not competing against the world, man. You're competing against yourself. You're basically over under on your props. You hit, you win. It's that simple. So again, check out our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the app, whichever. Put in our referral code there. We greatly appreciate it. And hey, let's get down to business. It was, there you see the man, Stone Cold Steve Austin. We're going to get right into our WrestleMania talks, man. Look, let's just kind of go through it. The easiest way, in my opinion, is kind of to go through it through the nights. Yep. I mean, we're not going to go match by match. I mean, look, we're not going to cover things like Drew McIntyre and the Usos, and we're going to hit the high notes. And one of the highest notes of the entire weekend, man, Miz and Logan Paul versus the Mysterios. I mean, let me ask you this. It's like we continuously grow. I saw something on Twitter that made me say, they asked the question. It's like, is Logan Paul now the measuring stick for celebrity?
That's hard. That's hard. Because Bad Bunny was prior to this. And then Logan Paul just tore it up. I may have to go look back and look at both matches together to see if we're going to do it that way. Also, is Pat McAfee considered a celebrity, or is Pat McAfee an employee since he's an announcer now?
Well, that's one thing I was going to throw in here. My caveat is I don't see Logan Paul as a celebrity person. People forget, like, dude was he was a high school, like, I think he was a high school potential. I can't remember if he was a college wrestler or not, but I know he was high school. He was a wrestler, but he's an athlete. I mean, he does, like, I get it. The boxing stuff they do is exhibition. It's not, but it's still, they train, they're boxing. They're actually training in boxing for those purposes. So I don't know that I consider him a straight celebrity, like a la Bad Bunny coming in and doing it. But the dude did show off his athleticism, like, hands down.
I was thoroughly impressed by that. And, bringing out his Pokemon card and the putting on the match and then getting turned on by Miz. He was working all the tropes, all your wrestling bits. So kudos to him. I think that was a good look. I think it was good for WWE too.
Lots of heat, man. He knows how to play it. The Three Amigos, the Eddie Shimmer, the Frog Splash, all of those things. Again, tack it onto there. It went so well, from my understanding, that there were talks of, deal. Like, hey, we want you back at SummerSlam. We want you wrestling The Miz, at SummerSlam kind of thing. A lot of people are like, man, that's a long way away. It goes kind of like, it's even more so than when you're talking about Brock Lesnar, right? Like, if you're going to use a Logan Paul, he's going to be either Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, something to that nature. You're not going to use him on one of the other pay-per-views, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's where I would place him.
Dude, think about it. If they're booking him 6 months out, that's a big deal. If they're talking about what he's going to do at SummerSlam, that's a big deal. That's how AJ Styles is booked. That's how apparently they're going to book some other guys now. Cody Rhodes coming back, going to get on a 6-month booking cycle. That's important.
Yeah, it's important to know where you're going. I mean, that's hands down. But I think anybody that's knocking the Logan Paul, spot going into it pleasantly should have been surprised at what they saw at WrestleMania, and probably their thing would have changed, in my opinion. Somebody, that just didn't change anybody's opinion in my question. I think it solidified the opinion of many. Bianca Belair defeating Becky Lynch, and here's the great debate: is everybody's kind of going back and forth. Which was the better women's match? Was it Charlotte and Ronda, or was it Becky and tomato?
I think this probably was the better match. Match wise, this to me was the work rate match of the two, which is kind of typically Charlotte always gets that, in my opinion. Yeah. But these two tore it down. I think Bianca's in another league now after beating Becky on the main WrestleMania match. That's a big deal to win over Becky Lynch and win the title at Mania. It's a big deal for her.
That's my hope. We will see, but my hope is this win elevates her into that, because this is with all due respect to every woman on the roster. I always saw the roster, and for the longest time, Ronda's not there. Ronda's there now just because she's there, but it was Charlotte, it was Sasha, it was Becky, and it was Bayley,
the horsewoman.
Correct. And then of course Ronda's in that mix as well. And here's the thing: we wanted Rhea Ripley to be there, but clearly they don't see her that way right now.
They'll get there. She'll get there.
But she's not now.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that Bianca elevates into that scenario. So now we have more than those four, because look, it was put out there a lot, and I'm not saying they were inaccurate. It felt like those four were in a rotation.
Yes.
Hey, listen, that was my big thing with Ronda came. I'm like, amen. Because at least it put one more, into the rotation, and it gave you that many more options when you're circling those around. The differences between the two, I'm kind of going to go a little bit out of the notes here to throw you for a loop, because I'm going to compare the two women's matches side by side. I think, like you said, work rate wise, Becky and Bianca was that match. Charlotte and Ronda had something that I try to tell people a lot. I think because everybody was like, oh, it was kind of sloppy. There were spots that didn't. To me, that's what makes it look more like a legitimate fight.
Yeah.
When things aren't like so smooth and so crisp that it looks like a little flippity, that probably shouldn't have happened that way. Then it looks more like a fight, and I think that's what we expected out of Ronda and Charlotte. It was more of a fight.
Two women that were really angry at each other, worked the program, been rivals for a long time. You'd want to think they're just going to go out there and just beat the shit out of each other, and that went out there and beat the shit out of each other. It wasn't pretty, but I mean, a 5-star match is pretty, but I've never seen any of these Young Buck and Kenny Omega matches that captivated me the way this match did. Okay, because I thought people were fighting, and was why I enjoyed it.
So to answer this, did the two matches feed two different audiences?
Yes, they did, and they did a really good job all through WrestleMania weekend with putting in a match for the hardcore fans, putting in a casual fan match, putting in something for everybody to enjoy. To be this was what this whole WrestleMania experience could go down as saying this was everybody's WrestleMania.
Right.
There was something for everybody, even if people had never watched a wrestling program before, because they came to see their celebrity people they liked. So
yeah, no, I know, 100%. And and then there was kind of to serve your purpose in between those two matches. Yeah. Cody Rhodes returns. Now we're going to go a little bit in depth in that a little bit when we get to the Raw stuff. As far as the actual meat of it, he got the reaction he wanted. They had a great match, and a matter of fact, double check, the poll should have ended a little bit before we hit. I put a poll up on our Twitter account. And I just want to pull it. So
drum roll.
It won. Cody and Seth won match of the show, all of WrestleMania. It had 38% of the voting. Austin and Owens had 32. How crazy is that? With over 3,652 people voted. So 38% with that voting gives Cody and Seth. So it goes back to what we were talking about, serving all of those different fan bases. Yes. That was your IWC. There's a reason I did it on Twitter.
Yes.
I wanted to see the Twitter IWC's answer, and yes. I kind of predicted that's what it would be. I was a little more surprised that Austin and Owens was in second place, but
you would have thought Edge and AJ Styles would have been in second place in their net wrestling.
Maybe. We'll see. Now look, I only had, you have to put 3 and then put other, and people put it in, so it doesn't stun me between those. But I think Cody's return, was it everything you think that fan base that wanted him back there wanted? Because it sure seemed like, and again, we'll address this in a minute, it wasn't what the people that didn't want him to go back wanted. But
it went real well.
Yeah, it went very well. And I think the match itself went really well.
Yes, indeed. Definitely.
Of course, that we just recently, like we just mentioned, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kevin Owens kind of had their feud interview match, kind of the end of the show. By the way, Stone Cold Steve Austin is now the oldest man to main event a WrestleMania at 57 years old or whatever the hell he is.
I tell you, either he hasn't missed a step or Kevin Owens is one of the best jobbers to ever put on a pair of boots. Okay, because he worked with Stone Cold so well, let that match flow the way it should have flown. You had a professional, a guy who called some of the best matches ever, a senior wrestler. With Owens was able to work with him and make it look so good. I've never been a Kevin Owens fan before night one. After night one, I'm now a Kevin Owens fan.
I think 2 things. One, the Stone Cold Steve Austin match, the style. Doesn't take now look, kudos to the guy for going 14 minutes or for whatever the hell he wrestled. That shows he's still in shape, which here's the funny thing, I don't think anybody doubted that he was going to be in shape. 19 years after the fact, he goes out there and has a match, and it's a brawl. Let's call it what it was. It was a brawl match. And they did a phenomenal job. He did his job, so I don't think he's missed a beat. But at the same time, Kevin Owens was a great dancing partner for him. I was stunned at Austin taking the suplex outside. That kind of surprised me a little bit. But at the end of the day, listen, we got to the end of the dance and we gave everybody what they wanted. They wanted the stunner, they wanted beers, and they served their purpose completely, to a T. Because when night 1 went off, look, it was in night 2 or night 1 was the long night. It went the later of the 2 nights. But when it was over, I was satisfied. I was happy because of the ending we got. And I was ready for night 2.
Yeah, definitely.
And you would be hard pressed to tell me that if you watch night 1, you weren't ready for night 2, because that was a phenomenal setup going into it. Just my take. So, anywho, then we had you went into night 2. RK Bro they just continue to roll, man. Look, that match was a great way to start that WrestleMania.
People have been saying those two are going to turn on each other and split up. Every week people are predicting it, and they just don't, and they just keep getting better.
Yep. Lashley defeats Omos by pinfall, which kind of stunned everybody that the undefeated guy, especially will address why it was even in a minute. Then, the anything goes match, Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, in my opinion, earned his entire contract in this little run.
Well, what he was supposed to do was go out there, get this feud over, deal with a Jackass crew, the whole Jackass crew, and make them look good. And whatever they want to advance, I don't know if Knoxville's got a movie or something or a TV show or something going on. I haven't followed him that much, but whatever they were set out to accomplish, they got. Sammy made Knoxville look good, and they had all the gimmicks. They had Mae Young and Mark Henry's child out there in the audience. I had fun with this. You can't take it too seriously. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's meant as a break, okay? It's meant as a break in what's going on to give you a comedic pause. Sometimes there's a place for that. If the whole show was that, no.
My take on this is you can't tell me you enjoy Orange Cassidy,
yes,
and some of the other comedy bits in the other promote in AEW, NW, whatever, and crap on this one, because I felt like this one, it accomplished everything it went out to do. It was
wasn't for you, it just wasn't for you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're just kind of like, hey, it was fun. By the end of it, it was like, and it was funny because I'm sitting there going, this is insane. This is nuts. This is crazy. But I'm all for it. Like, I'm in. This is, this is funny as shit. And kudos to Sammy for not taking himself so seriously that he wouldn't be, willing to go along with this.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, that was a huge thing. And plus, look, the next part, I know the 4-way women's match, Sasha and Naomi capture the women's tag team titles. A lot of people weren't real big fans of that. Like you said, it's I'm not going to spend a ton of time. It just it accomplished it. It served what it was supposed to do.
It was about entrances. They had some amazing entrances. And they also had to coordinate 8 people at a time. They had to do their jumping out of the ring, their spots. It was a spot fest. It was entertaining. To me, it was fun. But it's not for everybody.
No.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that it served its purpose. Believe it or not, Sasha picks up her first win at a WrestleMania. She is now, and obviously her and Naomi being tag champions. That was kind of like, let's get the belts on them. That to me showed like, look, they didn't have anything. They don't want Sasha involved in the title picture. So you had to keep her occupied. So put the tag belts with Naomi on her, and that'll keep people from asking.
Keep her hot, but keep her out of the main stage.
Well, and it gives a position for people not screaming for her to be in the mix.
Yes.
So then we rolled on. There was the Edge and AJ. So here's the thing. I love the match itself.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a huge fan of the finish. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
I didn't imagine that such a beautiful match would end that way.
Right.
But they wanted to get something over. This Edge faction they're starting, the way they're working it out, this made it feel like they were legit. Like, this is something they're going to work with and put a lot of importance on. He comes in, has the tense moment with Edge. Then they realize they're together as a team. Bingo. It sold the whole thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we'll follow up again because, like I said, we are going to address Raw in a later segment on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Poor New Day. I'm not even going to discuss it. They got bumped from night 1. They went to night 2. They had a super short match. It was what it was. Then came, another stunner shocker, and I have a backstory for this match, which will crack me up. Pat McAfee goes out and actually wrestles with Austin Theory, defeats Austin Theory, and listen, dude looked good again. I mean, people forget. I guess everybody completely forgot, like he did the thing with Adam Cole, right?
Yeah.
And put on such a good match down in NXT. Comes out with Austin Theory. Now, I think the argument could be made when he did it with Adam Cole. Most people probably put the praise on Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, he carried Pat McAfee. Now you got, a 24-year-old Austin Theory that you can't sit there and say, well, Austin Theory carried Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee did a pretty good job and, looked amazing. That leap to the top rope.
Yeah.
Like, that's an insane jump, and people, that's underestimated how high that is. But that was pretty cool. And what was funny about this match is, so I watched this match. The little kid who hasn't watched wrestling in a long time, she came home from college. She walked in. She came in pretty much a match or so before this, but she actually sat there and watched this one. And at the end of that match, her commentary said it all. She goes, I have no background on any of this, but that was fun.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, right, from a casual fan base.
A lot of fun. You elevated Austin Theory dramatically from Vince's protege, young kid, to now Vince's protege, established wrestler.
In a loss of all things.
Places. Yes.
Look, Vince getting in there, Vince wrestling with McAfee. He gets the win, of course, but then Austin out of nowhere, like, hey, we don't think Austin. I mean, Austin was last night.
Yeah.
But he comes back for part 2, of the Austin train at WrestleMania this year. He gets in there, stuns Theory. By the way, right up there with a Razor Ramon and a Rock Cell on a stunner. Like, Austin Theory selling it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Vince sells it like shit, but he's always sold it like shit. And I couldn't tell, did he get kicked in the nuts? Did he get kicked in the stomach too hard? Did he kick him in the leg? Because he looked like he crumbled. Fell. Yeah.
He looked like he kind of crumbled and took it awkwardly, even not the selling part, just the execution. Of course, Vince is 76.
I don't know, whatever.
He's ancient.
Well,
Good
and
job
it's funny
for a man
because
that age to take a stunner.
McAfee addressed it on his show yesterday, or Monday, and said that, like, he's like, dude, when Austin kicks you, he's legit kicking you in the breadbasket. He goes, it hurts. How would he know? Well, because he ate a stunner too, just to end it off as well. So, which, and that's what he did. When you get in there, you're like, listen, if anybody like McMahon, Byron Saxton getting in there, like, dude, don't get in there. Don't trust him. He's going to drink a beer with you. He's going to stun you. Doesn't matter who you are. And he proved that to be true.
God, at the amount of beer wasted. I mean, they weren't getting all that in their mouths.
That is true. But Austin has said on interviews before, like, yeah, he pours a lot out, but a lot of it goes down.
Yeah.
He had to be buzzing at that point, because even then, there was still enough of it chugging down that he probably...
There was so much beer spilled and so much beer everywhere and drank.
And how much of a commercial was that?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
He could have come back just for that. Just for get a beer commercial out.
Broken Skull, American Lager. Get yours, where you're, I'm like, seriously.
I mean, I'll drink that. I wouldn't drink that IPA. That's not my thing. But an American Lager, I'll look into that. I'd get a pack of that. It's better than that.
It legit, that's what it did. It made me like, dude, I'm going to have to try that one. I'm going to have to check that out and try it. Yeah, absolutely. But so we've got that one. And is anybody living the dream? I'm like, at the end of that show, of all things, I thought Pat McAfee, and if you go back and watch his Monday episode, dude was just so happy. Like, he dreamed about wrestling at a WrestleMania. He did. He won at a WrestleMania. He got to wrestle freaking Vince McMahon right after that.
Mm-hmm.
Then he drinks a beer, but then he gets stunned by Steve Austin at that wrestle. I mean, that is just wild. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like a fantasy camp for baseball.
Yeah.
That's like you get out there and live the dream. And that picture of Pat laying there pouring the beer in his face is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that.
So then we rolled in, of course, to the greatest matchup, most important, blah, 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 everything you wanted to son.
Of our tall time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so Brock and Roman. Now, I think everybody seems to be, at the end, kind of disappointed in the ending. And the mystery piece of all here is, was Roman legitimately injured? Those pictures that have come out online, it looks like it.
Looks bad.
But I'm not a doctor, so I have no clue. There's a video. Did you see the video where he grabs the top rope and people are saying that's him jerking his arm back into the socket? So during the celebration, he gets up, he turns, and he like reaches at the ropes and
I didn't see that.
Oh
no.
yeah, he legit just snaps, and it looks like
I saw AJ pop his arm back.
Yeah,
into the
that yeah,
but
and,
I didn't. I know Brock legitimately checked on Roman.
yes,
Yes, to see if he was hurt, and that to me was pretty impressive. I mean,
yeah, so
Brock's a lot more than. I always am surprised by him.
If he legit was hurt, kudos for one for finishing the match. AJ as well. If they both pop their arms back, I mean, like that's some insane shit to keep working.
Yeah.
It's over. But look, it is what it is. They got to where they wanted to go. We'll find out where that's gonna, how we're gonna follow up down the road.
I acknowledge him.
Yeah, acknowledge him. He's your champion. So.
Mhm.
That's kind of everything that went down. Like, what's your overall? Like, I wanted, there were a couple takes that I had from Mania. One is like I said, hey, it was fun. I think most important for 2 nights. And I did not send you the quote where I said, look, say what you want about it. Like, I would love to see anybody book 2 nights, that many matches of any better. Like, sure, could you sit here in hindsight and go back and say, oh, I would have done this and I would have done that? Yeah, we all could, right? But going into this, I think they did a really good job with all of the pieces they had on the table.
They set out to accomplish a lot. A lot of stuff had to be done. They did a very good job. I think that's the only way to look at it. You can't really say they failed at anything. Any match was so bad that it was, like a low light of the night. They had storyline to accomplish. They had promotional stuff to accomplish. I think they hit everything. So I loved it. I think it's an appealing WrestleMania, especially for one that's going to be on Peacock, where people can just wander across it. And if you turned on Peacock, the first thing you saw in one of those boxes to decide what you were going to watch was WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Okay? This is bigger advertising than it was getting in the past, folks. This is NBC on their streaming service advertising WrestleMania. That's a lot. That is mainstream appeal. You've got Cody Rhodes and Vanity Fair. You got Triple H and ESPN. You got WrestleMania right there on your Peacock. It's crossing over, okay, from carny sport to acknowledged entertainment.
I think what happens is kudos, goes out. The post was Gunnar Miller, friend of the show.
Yes.
Put it out there and was like, it's WrestleMania comes around once a year to kind of remind everybody that they're not just running wrestling shows, like events. They're doing like live events, like sports franchises, like big time concerts, big time events in general, not like just wrestling. And I know it was like, oh, well, they only did the attendance, and they didn't sell 78,000 like they said. They probably sold 70 or something, 60, I don't know. Somebody probably cares more than I am to look it up. Because my argument is, if the attendance numbers are what they reported, that's what they reported. So we're going to say they did 75,000, hypothetically, over two consecutive nights. They did 150,000 people in Jerry World. Well, it didn't sell out. Well, I had 2 things to say. One, that's still 150,000 people over 2 days in an arena. By the way, we also want to skip out the fact that they ran a Raw, a Smackdown, and an NXT Stand and Deliver. Oh, now Hall of Fame / was at the Smackdown right after, so same crowd. So all of those events, not to mention Access, et cetera, right? All the events they do. But the last thing about it was, we tend to forget. Like, let's just be honest with you. We are all like, hey, pandemic's over, man. We're all, Yeah. Okay, internationally, that is not the case. And I do tell people, the international crowd was hurt by that. Like some countries, it's not that easy to get back into if you leave. So therefore, those people probably couldn't come. Now, what did they lose? 5%, 10%? I don't know. But I'm saying you do have to keep those things in considered. But even if you take that out, I still don't think it was a bad day at work when you basically have a Smackdown, you have a Stand and Deliver, you have 2 nights of WrestleMania, and you like add all those numbers up across the board. I think they did okay.
Oh yeah, I would consider it.
So
I consider it a huge success. They gave people what they wanted. They gave Peacock what they wanted, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and it's all there. That's what I say. Even like, yeah, let's move right in. We're to Stand and Deliver. We talked about it. That was the day of night 1. First of all, how weird was that? That literally Stand and Deliver NXT was like at noon, 1 o'clock, whatever it was. I can't even remember at this point. It was all a blur. And I saw tweets and posts and things about like, oh, how NXT's fallen, blah blah blah. And I think, in my opinion, people want to knock it, and I still think for serving the purpose that it is serving now, it was really, really good show. I don't understand the main event now, in hindsight, which we'll address in a minute why I don't. Dolph Ziggler defeating Braun Breaker, I did not understand it, or I understood it at the time, but I do not now, and we'll explain that when we talk about Raw a little bit. But I do want to take 2 other things. One, Gunther/Walter, what the hell diet and exercise program do they have him on? Because he looks great.
Scary.
Yeah.
I mean, if he gets better and stronger,
if he can hold his strength and get even more agile by loosening some LBs and getting, that's going to be a dangerous dude.
Please send me the program.
Yeah.
Except for the part where the hard work's involved.
Lots of other stuff on the show. The standout to me, Myron's going to be stunned. The women's match was the standout of the show for me because I actually tweeted out during this match, I was watching it, and I said, I think the women's division is going to be fine. Everybody went like, oh my God, they lost this person. The women's division. Mandy Rose has quietly probably made the best, well, she probably didn't make the decision, but the decision to move her to NXT, best decision ever. Her with Toxic Attraction and her what she has pulled off. That 4-way match with with Cora Jade, Kaylee Ray, and Io Shirai was, in my opinion, the best match on the show, and proved to me that like the women's division in NXT is going to be fine.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's just, look, if you didn't like NXT, I get it. I understand. But at the same time, I think they're off to the races. They're still building those young stars. There's lots of people on there. Of course, the big news to the mass appeal of the the IWC is Tommaso Ciampa looks as though he has wrestled his final match. As Tony D'Angelo beat him at Stand and Deliver, Triple H came out, gave him a hug. They cried. Basically, it looked like it symbolized the end of his NXT run. He's going to the main roster. And in the Raw segment, we'll address where we think he's going, what his his future looks like. But is Ciampa leaving? Is that the final nail in the Triple H coffin at that point?
It's a different game now. Yeah. Totally different game.
Yeah. No pun intended, right?
It's a clean slate, you could say.
Yeah. And speaking, if you want to keep your slate clean, who do they check out, Myron?
Manscaped.
Whoa! Personal foul.
What the feezy?
You can't use a beard trimmer below the 50-yard line. This is the waterproof lawnmower 4.0 by Manscaped.
What's the difference?
It's got new skin-safe technology to help reduce cuts and nicks. It's powerful, yet gentle, just like me.
Dog, I appreciate you. Boop. Hey, watch out.
I'm not ticklish.
Get yours at manscaped.com.
That's right, man. Support the show. Check out our sponsors over there.
I'll tell you. I wish Northside Gwinnett had the lawnmower 4.0 because I've had my crotch shaved there twice, and those razors they have don't do anything compared to the lawnmower. it is. I'm not going to go into it. It's much more thorough.
Yeah.
And much more comfortable.
Yeah. Enjoy. Check them out. Get your package over
Get your
at
package.
Manscape. The links will be in the show notes. You know,
if I go back, I'm going in. If I have to have
just
another
take it
one,
with you.
No, I'm going to do it beforehand. I'm going to have it done at home. I'm going to have my lawnmower, get myself cleaned up, and go in and be like, "See, I'm done, folks."
Yeah.
Just,
you don't need to touch. Exactly. So, you know, go in raw.
It is fun having a stranger do it, though. That is one thing.
Well, there wasn't a new guy. He wasn't a stranger, but he did show up on Raw, and that is right. We're gonna get the annual, you know, Raw after WrestleMania. You know, it's always a big show. First and foremost, a little underwhelming for a Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah, there was not as much as I hoped for. I hoped to see more people besides Ezekiel.
You got Veer. You got Ezekiel / you know, coming back. I mean,
those are like farts in church.
Yeah,
to me.
Okay. Well, listen, I've heard some people talk about Cody's speech at the beginning of Raw that they weren't a big fan of it, and you know, it was kind of somber and.
It was supposed to be somber.
Yeah.
You're establishing his run. I'm here to do what my father never could do. Okay, how big a statement is that? It's a mission statement. It's setting up his run, the perfect way to do it. I can't wait to see where this goes.
You know, the irony of his speech of kind of like sometimes like to fulfill your destiny, there's a time period when you run from it or something. It's kind of something that's what he said. Like when he left, you know, he was Stardust. I mean, the mimic of it in the match with Seth, you know, that was kind of a little inside baseball kind of thing.
He was a mid-carder.
Yeah.
He was not even. I mean, he may have been worse than a mid-carder.
No, he was mid-card. I mean, he was your IC US champion at, you know, kind
of. I didn't realize he actually was gone 6 years. He left WB before we started doing this and was establishing himself on the Indies.
Yeah.
How insane is that?
Because you got to remember, it was like Indies, Ring of Honor, some New Japan, you know, Bob, all that. They were all over the place kind of making their name. And, you know, listen, man, kudos. I don't ever begrudge anybody for making a decision. And, you know, hey, if he felt like it was the right place and he felt like he needed to do it for himself, his family, you know, so be it. But I thought the speech was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. Seth coming out at the end basically, to me, says they're going to continue their feud, that they're not done. They're going to keep, I guess, Cody tied up for a little bit before they move on into him. Dumb question. Would you have shot? I mean, I saw a lot of people like, oh, they should just shoot him right into the title picture with Roman. I had two things to why I say no. If you throw him immediately in there with Roman, you have one of two things you got to decide. One, if you have Roman beat him, people will the internet will lose their minds and say, see, that's why you shouldn't have gone over there, Cody.
This is exactly where I think they fail at AEW. You come in, you get your title shot, you either win it or you go back to the bottom of the line and they never see you again. And they bring in a new guy and they give him a big title shot and he goes back to the bottom of the file. Make it mean something. Make him have a run to it. He has to work his way up through the lower guys and face some good talent.
Dude, I'd argue a little bit, but Seth Rollins ain't no freaking lower guy. That's the thing.
You know what I mean.
But yeah, he's not the champion, right?
Yeah. You have to establish yourself, get yourself over, and then go for your title run.
Right. Speaking of titles, this is the thing that did not make any sense to me. Braun Breaker wins the NXT title on Raw. Why didn't you just have him win it at the freaking Stand and Deliver? Is it because we wanted a couple million people to see it versus God knows how many people were watching Stand and Deliver at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday?
They had to get something over. They felt like they needed to get it over and put it on what's probably going to be the most watched Raw of the year.
But Myron, again, I go back to but if it's the NXT Championship, half the freaking thing won on NXT.
Yes.
Not on Raw.
I totally agree with that. But this is a big, big show, so I think they used it to their advantage.
Yeah. we'll see where they're going with it. That's the part, like I said, when I watched Stand and Deliver, I was like, oh, okay, so they're going to have Dolph stay over. I figured Braun Breaker was just going to make the leap. He was going to show up on the Monday on Raw, and he's a Raw guy. That he was done with NXT. But clearly that's not the case.
Maybe they're feeling it out to see how the Raw crowd reacts to him.
Could be. You never know. MVP turns on Bobby Lashley. Now he is with Omos. And by the way, kudos on a brilliant move, because AJ was the mouthpiece for Omos.
Yes.
Now MVP gets to go out there and hype him, and he can just stand there. Mm-hmm. That's all Omos needs to do, folks. He needs to stand there. He's not even a great wrestler, by the way. But here's the thing. When you're that big and that tall, you shouldn't be a great wrestler. You should manhandle guys, and that's the end of the conversation.
Do you think Andre the Giant ever was a top tier technical wrestler? No. Do you think Bundy? You think Bundy was a technical wrestler? No. None of those guys did that stuff. They went out there and they just beat the hell out of people.
Right.
And that's what they got over for.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be a big, bad heel. He needs to be scary, that he's just going to hurt you, and then he'll get over.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think big things. I wasn't. Now, the question became, shouldn't this just have happened at Mania? Because then you got the shocking moment of Omos, or MVP joining him. Because now Omos has a loss. You could have kept the undefeated streak going with a win over Lashley, and the explanation was that he turned on him, so therefore blah blah blah. So anyway, tomato. I get it. People want to go back and forth. But speaking of going back and forth, Austin Theory rebounded nicely from a Mania loss.
Mm-hmm.
Basically that promo backstage, I don't know if it was a pre-taped or not. It was pretty good. I mean, got the point across, and he went out there and he picks up the win in a 6-man where RK Bro, Finn Balor versus Theory and the Usos. Basically, Theory putting his stamp in it that he can run with the big dogs, because that's 5 other dudes that are pretty much good top end players.
Didn't all the 5 dudes all have belts on?
Yeah. Yeah, he was the only guy in the match not with a belt.
Yeah. Okay, think about it. Get him over. Cena 2.0. Get him over. Next person that gets over, you'll compare him to Austin Theory 2.0.
Yeah,
I think
we'll
that's
see.
Where they're going.
I think he's a U.S. champion. Like, I think it's sooner than later. He's going to have that gold around his waist.
First belt Cena won.
Well, I think you kind of have to. I mean, it's either U.S. or Intercontinental, right? You're not going to. Well, you're not going to jump straight. But speaking of titles, Roman comes out at the end of Raw, cuts a promo, basically saying that he's going to tell what his future is at Smackdown. So guess what, folks? You got to tune in on Friday to watch Smackdown to see what he's going to do. That's the big thing. But listen, it wasn't just about WWE. There was some stuff going on in AEW. It wasn't a ton, but we did want to address it. It looks like CM Punk is finally going to have his title chase. Based on the comments he made on Dynamite. Yeah, our time travel machine last week. He defeated Max Caster, basically cut a promo insinuating he's coming. And my take, man, is it's about freaking time. I know everybody didn't want to hear this. And listen, I've said for over a decade, I'm not a big CM Punk guy. But CM Punk is a great option to be your champion.
Well, right now, I think the champion needs CM Punk much more than the belt needs CM Punk much more than CM Punk needs the belt.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think CM Punk needs the title at all. I just think, as much as I love Hangman Page, I just don't see him on the level as those other guys. And I think with Cody's departure, and I'll explain that more in a minute, I feel like they need a Punk, a Danielson, a Jericho, or somebody like with that name power as their champion. But that's just my take on it, because I think they're going to be fine without Cody. I mean, like, with Cody gone, they're going to be fine, folks. No panic attack. Don't worry. But the things they do need to be concerned with is, look, I looked at why I was on Twitter. I have no idea. I quit Facebook. I took Facebook off my phone. So I only have it on my computers here in my office. And I'm like, if I'm not on my computer working, I can't see it. It was getting bad. Twitter's is bad, and I don't know why I didn't give up Twitter. I don't know what I was thinking.
Twitter is much worse than Facebook.
Correct.
I don't even look at Twitter maybe once a week.
For me to see like all of the hate and venom towards Cody leaving, I'm like, okay, guys, he helped build that product.
Yes.
Like, just let it go and let it be okay. Like, I've never once like begrudged a guy who left WWE, NWA, Ring of Honor, AEW, and went somewhere else. I'm like, why would you begrudge? Do I think they're smart decisions for some guys? No, I don't think some guys fit certain. And even Cody in his interview said that. Like, guys are going to come to WWE. And he even brought up a point of like, you probably know who they are.
Yeah.
There are guys who are made to be superstars, and there are guys who want to be wrestlers. There's going to be a better fit in both directions. There are guys on the WWE roster right now that I would without a doubt tell you they belong in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. There are guys in WWE or AEW that should be in WWE.
And why do we forget that this was very common years ago?
Yeah.
Jumping back and forth between WWE and NWA or WCW, coming in and out of territories was common. Nobody really homesteaded back then.
No. Well, in the territory days, it was total free for all that everybody just moved around. And I think that if we see Cody be successful and he's happy, more guys will make that jump.
Yeah.
If the proverbial shovel is taken to him, then I think less guys will make that jump. But here's the thing. I think that's Cody's saving grace. I think Vince and that team are smart enough to know that. Here's my thing.
Doesn't like.
Cody Rhodes is the key ingredient to the recruitment of MJF when his contract's up.
Yeah.
If they take care of Cody and he's happy at the end of that time, I think, what is it, 2 more years? He's January 2024. Is that something like that? I can't remember if it's 2023 or 2024. When MJF's contract's up, there's going to be a guy there now that knows MJF.
Yeah.
That can make that argument for him to come.
We'll know how to talk to MJF. We'll know how to tell them how to talk to MJF.
Dude, he'll be the head cheerleader recruiter. Yeah. Let's be honest. That's kind of what I've said. So keep that in mind, man. But listen, I think at the core of it, I think Cody's going to be fine. Everybody should be happy that, look, if it makes him happy, look, what would he always say? Cody's not a money guy. Cody didn't leave AEW, in my opinion. What do I know? I think Cody is a legacy guy, not a money guy. That's the way Dusty was. His father was like, he wanted to create a legacy. He wanted everybody to know Dusty created War Games. Like, Dusty created this, and Dusty created, all these things that he created. I think that more than anything. WWE doing a A&E biography over Dusty Rhodes, and now Cody being an executive producer essentially lets Cody write the narrative of his dad's story and not the WWE without him.
Not a biography that's going to go on a streaming service. A biography that's going to go out on network TV where a lot of people can see it.
Yeah, cable television, A&E, along with all of those others they're putting out there. It's a huge integral part. But anyway, to the kind of the point of all of that is, I think AEW is going to be fine. Everybody just needs to let the transition happen and move. Yeah. And I think, everything I think with all that talent that's on that roster, I think they'll be more than okay in AEW. Because they've also stepped into the grounds of Tony Khan has purchased Ring of Honor. They had their Supercard of Honor show over the weekend. Look, what doesn't run, right? Over the weekend for WrestleMania.
In my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. There's way too much. But the beauty of it is there's so much stuff going. Even if you're not a WWE fan, you can go to WrestleMania, the city they're in, and just watch a whole bunch of other shit that's not their show.
It should be a holiday. It should be a national holiday. So I could always be off work for it. Because trying to work and catch all this stuff has been incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I was falling asleep in pre-production trying to get through all the notes. I've worn myself out staying up late trying to watch all this stuff after work. National holiday, people. Let's take the whole weekend off, the whole week before.
Super Bowl and Mania both.
Yes.
So, to address the Supercard of Honor show, look, you can't address this show without just a couple things. Look, a bunch of matches. I mean, look, and they were good. It was what Ring of Honor is, folks. It's great wrestling, right? That's kind of what their wheelhouse is.
Great wrestling show. Samoa Joe return is probably the biggest deal of the whole show. I'm sorry, I don't care what you think about all the matches. None of them compare to Samoa Joe coming back. So what you have now, Samoa Joe back with Ring of Honor, Regal on AEW. They made such great stuff recruiting indie talent to NXT, building indie talent that you just have such good minds. You have such great wrestling minds involved with Ring of Honor and AEW now. I think it's going to benefit both of them tremendously. Okay? I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, and I think Joe will be a good recruiter for them. It's kind of the same thing we just talked about Cody on the other side. I think Joe will be a good recruiter. I mean, he pointed out in an interview that, hey, WWE is not chasing indie talent. AEW, because he was like, most of your indie wrestlers, what did we say a minute ago? They need to go to AEW. That's the wrestling company. So they just stopped. They just went to the NIL deals. They just went to recruiting athletes that they can coach and bring in. We said it in the past, right? They want coachable talents. That's essentially what they want.
They're an entertainment product.
Yeah.
AEW and Ring of Honor are wrestling products.
Ring of Honor, to my opinion, even more so. And, that's why things like the Briscoes versus FTR stands out on Ring of Honor show, right? Because they get to go in there and they get to do a wrestling match. They get to go in there and be this. Jonathan Gresham and Bandito get to go in there, and Jonathan Gresham proves, hey, I'm one of the best wrestlers in the world. Like, that's the whole point. That's why Jay Lethal, to be honest with you, this is not going to be popular. Has no business in AEW. He should never be in AEW because they clearly he debuted, he was big, and then he was on dark ever since. Yeah. He needs to be over here as a top dude in the Ring of Honor brand. And I think we saw that's kind of what the plan is, it looks like. The question is Gresham, Lethal, I guess if FTR's your, you know what I mean? If like they're your winners, Samoa Joe, like, is that your key? Is that your base? I mean, so tag team, is it going to be, is FTR like, are they done with it? Like, we're just going to move over to freaking Ring of Honor because that's where we belong.
If you can get great talent, more exposure, I'm all for it. Where's their TV? Until they get TV that I know about, they're just going to be a show that does these events. You're going to have something in town. You're going to run a Ring of Honor show. I really want to see this come back. I want to see Ring of Honor on national television with this roster. This will be some great wrestling, folks. Okay, Mercedes Martinez is one of the best women's wrestlers of all time. I think we need more of this. So,
yeah. So I mean, lots. I said Ring of Honor. Look, it's going to be an alternative to an alternative.
Yes,
is the best way to, that you could put it. Mm-hmm. I just love the fact that it's options.
Yes.
And that's kind of a cool
thing. If you don't like WWE, don't watch it. You don't have to. You got plenty of other wrestling. This is the best time to be a wrestling fan because you have a buffet. Okay? You have a Quincy Steakhouse buffet, if anybody gets that reference. I can go over here and have some salad. I can go get some meat. Or I can go get dessert. Eat what you want. You don't have to eat. You can put ice cream and chicken wings on the same damn plate these days.
Right.
Okay? Find what you want and eat that. No rules.
And
enjoy what you want.
Any weekend, WrestleMania weekend. And here's the thing, for all the people that dump on WWE, and I get it, trust me, I understand where you're coming from. But for all those people that do, you know what I come back with? If it wasn't for WrestleMania, this weekend doesn't exist.
Nope.
Where all these promotions come and all these promotions, like I know Tony Khan, per Brian Cage, now didn't really want AEW talents working indie shows, there because they didn't want to be confused if they were even remotely affiliated with WWE or whatever. But like, I get it, dude. There were, like you were saying, it felt like there were like how many shows a day, right? It was just shows everywhere, every type of show. Like that, being in a city with WrestleMania now, you can see what we talk about when we say there's so many options between, like, even, let's just like not even talk indies for a second. If you don't like WWE, you've got AEW, you've got Ring of Honor, of course, you've got Impact, you've got NWA, you've got MLW. I mean, and then if you really want to go out and you want to latch on to streaming services, you start getting into New Japan and you get into AAA. Then you start tearing down into the indies. You've got the bigger indies like PWX, GCW, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Then you can go down to the next tier when you get like your IWTV level, right? Where you get all of the indie shows all over the country. Yeah. You can find something you want. And here's the crazy thing. I still stand on the record and go, I would find it hard pressed to find somebody who didn't enjoy WrestleMania because they looked as though they appeared to try to give a little bit of something to everybody. That's why they can't make everybody happy, is because they're trying to give something for everybody.
Well, it takes more energy to bitch about something than it does to change the channel and watch something else. And we're able to change the channel to different wrestling these days.
There's just way too many options, man. It's always somewhere, because there's always, like, everything has a subscription service. Everything's got a service, right? Like even us. You can sign up over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Get everything we do. We kind of put it right there on Tapped Out. You get it early. All the bonus stuff is in there as well. We we appreciate anybody who supports us over there. But make sure if you're not there, at least somewhere, whether it be on YouTube, if you're the video watcher, make sure you're subscribing. Not just subscribing, by the way. Click that little notification bell so you get every time we put something up there that's out of the ordinary, that's special, bing, it'll pop up and you'll get that notification. And of course, if you're a podcast listener, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Amazon Music, anywhere and everywhere there's a podcast platform, we are there, folks. So make sure you're subscribing. Give us that 5-star rating. We would absolutely greatly appreciate it, for sure. So anything else, man? I know we got some indie stuff, but I think, look, this show went so long, I think we're just going to have to record it separately.
Sounds good. Let's pop an indie talk on us after we finish this.
Well, man, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.